It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccer Files Canada. Welcome to Series 30, looking at the players of the 2025 Gold Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Suriname. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go. Well, let's welcome listeners to part 3 because we're doing a short version with just part 3 here. So new listeners for section 3. So I'll just speak to the new listeners and say in the full version we introduced the candidates and their likelihood of making the final squad, and we also summarized each position and who has been occupying it since the 2023 Gold Cup. Okay, and then for those just listening to the short version, you can go to the full version if you want that information and the justification for the categories we put the players into here. Okay, for those who've listened, it's just going to be a review of the names in the summary, and we're not going to concern ourselves with predicting starters at this point, and in fact that would be very hard to do for Suriname, but we will do in part 2 at least talk about the starters. Let's go back then over the list and go through it. So the manager is Stanley Menzo, and he's in his second stint with Suriname, and he will be leading them through this tournament, or we think he is likely to not lose his position before the tournament. Goalkeepers, we have definite candidate Warner Hahn, and then 2 likely candidates, Etriam Vason and Jonathan Funkel, and then 2 possible candidates, Ishan Court and Janilo Vagel. So 5 candidates there. They'll probably choose 3 goalkeepers. Central defenders, well, usually teams bring 5 or 6, but Suriname doesn't have a lot to choose from here. They have definite candidates Shaquille Pinas, and then 2 likely candidates, Mienti Abena and Stefano Denswil. And we won't talk about candidates at the possible but unlikely level or below unless we have a reason to. In this case, we do want to note that veteran Ryan Donk is off the squad, so we can't expect him in the cup. Left back, we just have 2 definite candidates. That's because we see defenders playing in the midfield quite a bit for Suriname, so they get a lot of starts. Rigiciano Haps is the first one, and Javencio Vanderkust is the second one. Both of those definite candidates to be selected for the final squad. At the right back position, no definite candidates, but 2 likely candidates, Anthony Dijksteel and Liam van Gelderen. And also a possible candidate in Navajo backboard. And we do have a couple of possible but unlikely candidates, but we'll only bring them back in if they're selected for the final squad. We won't confuse things by mentioning the unlikely candidates here. Next we have, so we move on to the midfield and defensive midfielders. We've recoded, or not recoded, but moved some of the players around depending on where they're actually lining up. So we have a definite candidate in Kenneth Powell here. Ran out of air there. Kenneth Powell. He's a left. He's coded as a left back, but has been playing in the midfield. He's pretty versatile. He's our definite player. The likely player is coded as a central defender. It's Dion Malone. And then finally, we have a player actually coded as a defensive midfielder. That is possible candidate Silvino Esajas. The central midfielders, again, it's mostly defenders playing in this role, so we have no definite candidate. We have a likely candidate in Renski Adipi and a possible candidate in Doraso Class. Those are all the candidates for defensive and central midfield, but as we said, defenders kind of making up that making up those numbers. We move on to left midfield, a position they don't use that much, but we do have Jaden Turf-Kruer coded as a left midfielder, and he's just a possible candidate at that level. Right midfielders, we have no candidates. And even when they do use a 4-3-3 formation, it's out of position players filling the role. Let's go to the left attacking role. So depending on the formation, it could be a winger, attacking midfielder, or a forward in a 4-3-3 formation. We created this category of left attackers. We have no definite candidate here, but we have two likely candidates, Jamilio Richters and Virgil Misijan. And that's all we have there, other than players who are unlikely. The right attacker position, we have definite candidate Geraldo Becker. We have two likely candidates, Jaden Montnor, who's actually coded as a left attacker, but has been playing on the right. And the other likely candidate is Jurano Kirk. And we have two possible candidates as well, Richanel Margaret, who's actually coded as a forward but got his only start as a right attacker, and the other Roskelov Leiter. Yes, okay. And then we move to central attacking midfield. We have a definite candidate in Emmanuel Ferre and a likely candidate in Justin Lonwijk. And we added to this category a secondary striker, Denjel Jubitana, who is also a likely candidate to make the squad. Finally, we have the forwards, the definite candidate, Cleofilo Leiter, one of the only candidates here who we can safely say we expect to be a starter in the Cup. Again, part 2 will deal with starters. And we have three possible candidates here, Dylan Vente, Tyrone Conrad, and Shaquille Stein. All right, that is the list. Another thing we do in section 3 is we look at injuries to keep an eye on. But fortunately, as of now, Suriname has no injury concerns. There was an injury concern over Geraldo Becker, but he's not on the injured list anymore. So there we have it. And closing thoughts. Well, most of our closing thoughts deal with whether teams will bring their best players to the Cup. But Suriname rarely gets to the Gold Cup, and so I'm sure once they get there, they will be sending their best players. So no real closing thought. Well, maybe one closing thought. They made quite a few changes in the March 2025 games. So all of the patterns that we saw forming under the new manager in 2024 are cast into doubt because of the changes made in 2025. So in part 2, it'll be difficult for us to predict who the starting players will be. But we will do a quick preview of part 2 here. So in part 2, we do focus more on who are going to be the starters. And we're going to do that once we know who the final selection for the squad is, who the preliminary and final selections were. So in part 2, we'll go over the list that we've created here and look at those players. We'll make note of any notable non-selections, any surprise inclusions, any new players, and then if we have any information on injuries, we will also cover that. So that brings us to the end. I hope this helps increase your enjoyment of the 2025 Gold Cup. I know doing it does for me, so I hope listening or watching it does for you. We would like to thank Future Bass for the wonderful music you hear in this podcast. The title is called Alone.